Sky howdy, and welcome back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio. Big Sky howdy, everybody. I'm going to do something a little different here. First of all, I want to say welcome. Thanks for spending some time with me on my channel. And to everybody that's spent all the hours on it before, love you guys. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to actually bring real Bigfoot evidence to you. And at this point, now that everyone in the known universe, including their granny and their pet gerbil, has made a video about this, I guess it's time for me to weigh in on the elephant in the room. First of all, full disclosure, I do not have a horse in this race or a dog in the fight. Doesn't matter to me. I, as most of my longtime viewers know, had my first sighting in 1972, very close up, broad daylight. And I did not see the Patterson Gimlin film until afterwards. So I already knew these things were real. And whether the Patterson film was proven real or not was absolutely irrelevant to me. On the other hand, actually, I would have been, sort of probably more comforted if it was not real, because what I saw did not look like Patty. And when I saw the Patterson Gimlin film, I was just more confused, because I was like, that's not what I saw. Now, there's not one, there's two different kinds of big, scary monsters running around the woods. That was not at all comforting. I was not happy about that. But after I had my second sighting, which actually was with a Bigfoot, in 77 is when I started actually doing active field research. So as of next year, I have 50 years of field research in. And there's old timers out in the field that have been doing Bigfoot research for a long time, but seriously think about it. How many field researchers have been out there for 50 years? Not even Ron Moorhead. He was out there recording the vocals in the early 70s, and then he didn't do any field research for like 30 years. So, no. Okay, so yeah, I am qualified to jump the high horse and actually say something about this. And part of the problem is that people are really emotionally invested in both sides of this. And this is nothing new. Since the PG film, or the Patterson film, was actually released, there have been multiple attacks on it. Every 5 or 10 years, somebody comes along and says, I got the proof it was fake. And they waste everybody's time, and they make a bunch of money, create some controversy, and then they're proven to be liars, hoaxers, and frauds every single time. As science got better and better tools to do analysis on the film, instead of being debunked, it was proven real every single time. New testing brought to bear on it. What does it say? It's real. Evidence that may be presented in this film, I find to be extremely questionable, considering what I've heard about it so far. And yeah, I haven't seen the film. I can hardly wait for it to be released. And, if it could hold up under scrutiny, I have a question to those that are currently holding it because they showed it at the South by Southwest Festival, and they got some controversy there, which is what they want. Controversy creates cash, and they had some channel called Harryman Road that told everybody what was on the video, and that the Patterson film had been completely debunked. And then Wiley Dave did an interview with Bill Munn's famous Bigfoot film analyst and special effects guy, who was actually in the documentary, and he said the new video does not prove the film debunked. It's a not very good copy. And once again, it's fake, and you can tell if you know anything and you look at it. So part of this is, obviously somebody wants to make money again, so they're wheeling out a new way to try and get everybody's attention and get their 15 minutes of fame and pocket full of cash. And I'd like to point out that hearsay and slander are not considered to be evidence, and opinions are like buttholes. Everyone has one, and they all stink. So now we're getting, thanks to this, once again, we're having an open field battle. We've got a gigantic field in the valley, and on one side of it, we've got the Knights of Bigfoot representing their Pope, Roger Patterson, their Cardinal, Bob Gimlin, and the Holy Relic, which must not be questioned, the PG film. And on the other side of the field, you've got savage trolls with the intellectual honesty of a cult leader, the attention span of a fruit fly on fentanyl, and the IQ of a sea cucumber attacking with feral glee. In the middle, between the onrushing armies, a milling mob of clueless tiger petters with zero knowledge of the subject, but more than willing to egg both armies on and join with whichever side happens to prevail. And on a hill nearby, there's a small group who just want to analyze the evidence, and they're gritting their teeth, crossing their arms, and waiting. The problem here is that this film has been around for 60 years. Everyone's super entrenched, and they've all got their point of view that they're willing to fight it out for. So what we need is a neutral party that hasn't got really any opinion on it to come in and talk about it. And that's not me. I'm a human. I have an opinion too. I've already gone around conventional sources to find out if the Patterson Gimlin film was real or not. And the Sasquatch said it's real. So as far as I'm concerned, case closed. But you guys maybe don't want to believe that. So let's take another look from another third party. And actually, they took the best possible version of this film and they had it analyzed by a mighty new and powerful AI, which wasn't ChatGPT, it was Grok. And but this was not just like, hey, Grok, is it real or not? Grok was not allowed to use any external input. No piece of information that anybody told it, no opinion from anybody ever, either way. It was just the film. And give me a second here, and I will tell you about the parameters that they used for it. All right, so first off, let's take a look at what Grok AI finally did when it got the film and how it did its analysis. In early 2026, Grok got access to one of the best copies of the film that was available, the highest quality. Digital scans of the Patterson Gimlin film ever produced. The AI was asked to analyze the footage using methods no human researcher could replicate, including frame-by-frame biomechanical analysis, motion tracking, texture mapping, light physics modeling, and comparative anatomy assessment against every known species. What Grok revealed stunned both believers and skeptards. The AI did not just say the film was real or fake. It provided specific measurable evidence about what the footage actually shows. This evidence suggests the Patterson Gimlin film is far more mysterious and strange than anyone may have actually thought initially. And this is what they actually looked at. All right, and before we complete the analysis, I'd also like to point out that this video is worth watching. They've got a great history of the whole Patterson Gimlin film from beginning to present, including all of the previous hoaxers that have crawled cockroach-like out of the woodwork to plague humanity for a few months, grab a big pile of money, and disappear again. And wait, what's this? I've got an update. Apparently, MK Davis is signaling that he's got the piece of equipment that he's going to use for this show ready to go. He's fueling it up right now, getting it fully loaded with 30 millimeter depleted uranium ammunition. And he's saying something about a special new secret type of ordnance that no one has been able to test out. And he's getting the go ahead to try that. And we'll be back with more on MK, but let's go back to the AI analysis. So as previously stated, Grok AI was given access to the highest quality Patterson Gimlin film that was available to do the analysis on. The AI, of course, was programmed to analyze it without human bias, without knowledge of the decades of controversy surrounding it. It was simply asked, what does the footage show? The AI examined motion patterns, tracking every movement of every visible body part. Measured the length and thickness, variance of femur, arms, etc. Head and torso relative to each other, compared them to human proportions and great ape proportions. It calculated center of gravity for each frame, determined whether the creature's balance and weight distribution were physically accurate for the movements shown. The AI examined joint articulation, tracking how the shoulders, elbows, hips, and knees moved, and whether the range of motion was consistent with real anatomy. It also analyzed the terrain, measured the slope and consistency of the ground, and calculated whether the creature's foot placement and stride length were appropriate for the surface. It studied the light reflection on the hair, determining how the light interacted with the creature's surface and if this was consistent with real hair or with fabric and fake fur. Best of all, Grok examined the skin and face texture in frame 352 and other moments where the creature's face was partially visible to see if there were any signs of a mask edge, costume seam, or other indicators of AI construction. This analysis actually took weeks of processing time. Grok examined hundreds of data points across every frame, building a comprehensive biomechanical profile of whatever was captured in the footage. When Grok completed its analysis, the results were stunning. The system found no evidence of digital manipulation or tampering with the film. The footage appeared to be an authentic, unaltered recording from 1967. Whatever was in the film was really there when Patterson filmed it, was not added in after the fact. And more significantly, Grok concluded the biomechanical movement of the subject was very inconsistent with a human in a costume. Length, the arm swing ratio, the hip rotation, and the shoulder movements, all of these showed patterns that do not match human biomechanics. When humans try to walk with exaggerated strides or altered gaits, that shows characteristic compensation patterns, unnatural hip movement, awkward arm positioning, and balance instabilities due to them not walking normally. Grok AI found none of these indicators in the PG footage. The creature's center of gravity calculations were particularly revealing. Throughout the footage, Patty maintains perfect balance despite walking on uneven, sandy terrain. The AI calculated the center of gravity appears to be positioned higher and more forward than in a human, consistent with a much larger, more heavily muscled frame. A human in a costume trying to replicate that balance and posture would show visible strain and occasional balance corrections like falling on their face. AI detected none of these. The limb proportions also did not match human anatomy. Good going, thinker thunker. The arm length relative to leg length was outside normal human ranges. Thickness and musculature of the limbs, calculated from how they moved and how light reflected off them, suggested a mass distribution impossible for a human fake with a 1967 costume technology. Proportions were inconsistent with a human, and, importantly, Grok AI's analysis of the hair, showed patterns consistent with real hair growing from skin. As MK has pointed out, there's even wear underneath the arms where the arms are moving back and forth. AI detected subtle movements in hair underneath the hair, movements below the surface, muscles contracting and relaxing under the skin, causing minute changes in surface texture. The hair dynamics looked authentic. In frame 352, where Patty's face is partially visible, Grok AI found no evidence of mask edges, costume seams, or artificial boundaries. Transition from face to hair appeared continuous and natural. Facial structures showed subtle details, variations in texture, and possible anatomical features that would be extraordinarily difficult to fake with a mask and impossible to duplicate at the time. So, what was Grok AI's final conclusion? The system could not identify the creature. It analyzed the morphology, proportions, and movement patterns, comparing them to every known species, including humans and all great ape species, bears, and other large mammals. Nothing matched perfectly. The creature was not human. The proportions and biomechanics were wrong. It was not a gorilla or any other known ape. The body structure and gait were different. It was not a bear. Sustained bipedalism and limb articulation were incompatible with a bear. Grok concluded with high confidence the Patterson Gimlin film shows a large bipedal creature that does not match any currently recognized species. The footage appears to be authentic and unmanipulated. The subject appears to be a real biological entity, not a costume or special effect. What species it represents remains undetermined. The AI could not say this is definitively a Bigfoot because Bigfoot is not a scientifically recognized species. But the analysis could say with certainty that the footage shows something real, something biological, and something does not fit into any known taxonomy. The implications of this are staggering. We're getting word that MK Davis is on his way to the studio. Here's some video that he sent up, a recent flight where he was using the brand new composite high explosive uranium depleted ammunition to take out some Skeptard speedboats. Ooh, how embarrassing. And this is a deployment of the new ordnance, the bullshit-seeking missile. Rumor has it this is the same ordnance that was used to take out Khomeini right at the beginning of the Iran conflict. Oh, that's gotta hide. And so, yeah, MK is on his way into the studio. Don't worry, no Bigfoot were harmed. That's just a suit. A guy in a suit. And we are back with MK Davis to address that big old fat elephant in the room. Welcome back to the show, MK.
Hey, good to be back, Duke.
Especially for so much fun. I noticed there's been a ton of people that have already done videos on this subject. I haven't yet, and this will be it. And some of them have put out some really ridiculous claims. Other ones have made some false statements. Canadiana Jones up there at Cabin in the Woods said that the film had been analyzed by the number one person who had ever analyzed the film and had spent more time in analyzing it than anyone else, which is Bill Munns. And I said, well, that's factually incorrect. MK Davis has been analyzing the Patterson Gimlin film for 10 years longer than Bill Munns has even been involved in it. So let's start off with that one. Now, nobody's seen the film yet except for a few people that were at the first showing of it, and apparently there were supposed to be other showings coming up to the point where they were going to release it to the public for pay-per-view, and now they have released a statement that they have canceled those additional showings, fearing that the film is going to be pirated. Now, you would think that could work two ways. If somebody pirates part of it and puts it out and it turns out it looks really great, everybody's going to want to see the whole thing. You can immediately sue them and make them take it down. But it almost sounds like they're afraid somebody's going to go look at that comparison video part of it and debunk it immediately, so nobody will want to pay them any money and come and see their video.
Yeah, it could happen either way, couldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
If I was a betting man, I'd say that's probably what would happen.
Well, if
They
you
say
got
that.
really irrefutable proof it's the same suit and it looks like the one in the PG film, then if somebody leaks that, it's just going to make more people want to go see it.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? It's kind of peculiar. Now, as far as the narrative of this video goes, you're supposed to have it's claimed that Mrs. Patterson actually comes out and says that the film was a hoax. And as far as I can determine from the more than one people that have seen this, that is not the case. Clint is mainly the one that's involved. And at the time the film was shot, he was in his diapers or sucking on his toes or something. He had no involvement in it. Anything that had to do with the film was something he heard about after the fact, if he ever even heard it. And he did have issues with his father, the guy that filmed the movie, Roger. And then you've got a Meldrum who has a reaction on there that's tearful and shocked. And oh my God, this looks like it could be a dry run or something along those lines. And from what I understand, they showed him the video claiming that it had been shot in 1966. We'll get back to that. And then they've got Bob Hieronymus in there, sometime well-known hoaxer and liar, disproven and discredited multiple times. And they're not even claiming he was the guy in the suit in the new comparison video they rolled out. They're claiming it was El Diatley that was the guy in the suit. So why they've even got well-known liar and hoaxer Bob Hieronymus involved in this is peculiar. And yeah, getting back to the other claim, which the whole thing it hinges on, is when was this comparison video shot? Was it actually a dry run for the Patterson Gimlin film, or was it a comparison video that they had shot after the fact? And they're claiming that it was shot in 66, but all they've got to base that on is that the film stock that it's shot on was manufactured by Kodak in 1966. Now, out of everybody that's weighing in on this, and there's only, like Bob Gimlin left. Oh, and the other thing, Bob Gimlin, they claim that Bob Gimlin actually made an admission that the film was fake, and it sounds to me like he was basically just mugged. He had some desperados jump in line at a conference he was at and want to ask him some questions and get him on camera, and his wife stepped in and stopped the whole thing. And apparently, so there's no evidence of that either. But regardless of whatever they may have had in that movie, let's not forget Bob has stuck by his story for 50 years. Bob took a polygraph test on camera, which he passed easily. So whatever they come out with at this point, who cares? And again, there are different kinds of evidence, and hearsay and slander are not evidence. But now we're going to get to the part of the show where, first of all, we heard from two independent sources, non-human. Bigfoot said that video is real. And the AI analysis says the film's real. Now let's go to the actual expert that's been looking at it for 30 years and picking it apart. What do you think, MK?
Well, I'll stick with the film itself. From the very beginning, I thought the film would tell its own story if you could get the very best versions of it. And that's the way I concentrated on doing just that. And so I think that it does tell its own story. And like the people say, believe your lying eyes. Uh, when you see stuff on a film that you recognize in everyday life, the kind of biological functions, biomechanics that you see in everyday life and recognize, and you see it on that film, then whatever anybody says about it, they, the people who are the naysayers about that film base everything on those low quality versions of the film, where it could be anything. You could, at anybody's suggestion, babies on their back. You ever heard anybody say that?
Yep. Yeah, I've
You
heard a lot of weird theories.
Yeah. But it clears up when you get the better versions of the film.
Yeah, then you can see that those are artifacts and blurry versions that have been copied of copies of copies of copies of copies start creating artifacts that aren't there. And you got really good versions of this thing directly from Widow Patterson.
Yes, and some other places as well. There was a whole series of prints made from the original, and I've got those. And
Those are the what, Chrome prints?
Cyberchrome prints. They're just really excellent. This is an enhanced frame. It's one of the Cyberchrome prints that were taken from the original film by this person named Bruce Bonney. They're very high quality, just like he said they were. He said you could see things down to the size of a marble or a grape. No one would take his word for it. But it actually is true. You can see right here that there's muscles showing across the side of the leg, the entire width of the leg, and the hair's worn thin by the arms swinging and making contact, brushing it. Images off that film, and it's exactly like what I thought it would be. That there was a better version out there, and it was once the internet started, and the internet is like a big repository of everything. And once people began to be connected to each other, and the people who are close to the film or who have copies of the high quality copies, they become online and they get to talking to each other, sometimes arguing with each other, and next thing you know, the better versions of frames off of it show up, and that's what happened. And it told me that you can't get that kind of a picture off a bad film. And everybody was saying the Patterson film is just nothing but a blurry film. It's a shaky, grainy, blurry film. Uh, they said it's a bad film, but it's anything but.
And there's multiple copies of this thing floating around. There's the the one that the Pattersons have. There's the one that what's her name?
Jan Maccabee.
Maccabees, yeah, excuse me. Brain meltdown there. And then you've got the one that DeHinden sold to the Russians that they still have.
Yeah, Gordon Strassenberg has a copy.
I know Robin had it for a long time too. She was holding on to it for Igor.
It's even those copies are, when they get up within three or less from the master, you start to see things,
really good detail.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
this
like
is the one that, from what I understand, the one that DeHinden passed off to the Russians was a copy off the master. So it was like, what, first generation? And the Russian scientists that looked at immediately said, yeah, this is real. Unequivocally, all of them. They went, yep, no doubt this is real.
Well, I mean, if you can see what I see, I can understand that.
Yep. And this would be, like Dmitry Bayanov, Dr. Boris Porshnev, Dr. Igor Burtsev, and some of the other team that were involved over there. They all took a look at it and went, well, that's not a guy in a suit.
Well, you can see enough. I mean, they're really scientifically minded over there. They figure out things like they figured out the speed of the film based upon the rhythm of Roger Patterson as he was running.
Mm-hmm.
They saw the film
bouncing
the
up and
scene
down.
bouncing up and down. They used that as a way of counting the frames. And they came up with about correct.
Another thing that Another thing that ties into that is the speed of Patty's locomotion, because she's not running, she's strolling away. Roger is running toward her full out, trying to catch up to her, and she's walking away from him. That's not a little stubby Bob Hieronymus in a suit that's walking and outrunning Roger Patterson.
Speaking of that, she also, when she looks back at the men in that what they call the money shot, uh, she takes 4 steps without looking at the ground in front of her, and that is broken ground. And is if that was a man in a suit, that he'd end up flat on his face.
Mm-hmm.
It's she had spent a lifetime in the
And those,
in the woods. You know, you can tell.
if it was a suit, they have to explain how they managed to pull off the flexion on the foot too, because there's frames where you can see the whole back of the foot up in the air, and there's other frames where you can see the toes are up in the air while the foot's flat on the ground.
All right, that's pretty good. Walking along kind of slow, you see a track right there. Foot bent up, heel lifted. Toes lifted. Notice that the sand looks white, but it's not white. It's actually kind of a blue or blue-gray. And when it gets wet, it's almost dark. It's shale sand. It's contour using exposure to contour the bottom of the foot. Each click cranks up the exposure. And you can follow that the foot is not a board, piece of board.
So that was an amazing, foot construction on that suit, where you could flex the toes, and there was the mid-tarsal joint in there too, that facilitated all of that movement.
Certainly not a wooden foot.
Nope. Some very complicated hinges and stuff built into that. And then how did they do the padding for all the muscles and stuff that were moving around? And before we get any further into this, step back for a second. It's 2026. Given any amount of budget, there is no team that can duplicate the Patterson Gimlin's supposed suit. They still can't make a suit that would do that, given any amount of money. In the early 70s, they asked the best special effects teams on earth, Disney, can you duplicate that? And they said, no, we can come close to it for about $2 million. $2 million. So where these broken down rodeo cowboys get the special effects expertise and the millions of dollars it would take to make this damn suit. And then, of course, they just burned it afterwards, right? Sure.
Yeah. That seemed to be the way that things happen. When people make these claims,
Mm-hmm.
you try to hold them, call them out on it. They said, well, it burned up in a fire.
Mm-hmm.
Well, poof. And I don't know. Maybe they're that's why I call it a hoax. When you hoax a hoax, it's a hoax.
Yeah.
Double hoax.
That would be where Hieronymus came out and went, hey, I'm the hoaxer that was in the suit. You're a hoaxer, but you weren't the one in the suit.
Heel strike and push. Look how good that picture is. You can see the skin through the hair with no enhancement whatsoever, including the glutes and all of such things. Watch this. Copy. There's a new image. All right. Let's just see, by boosting contrast, if we can see those glutes better. Well, look at there. That looks so natural. It looks so natural that you almost can't call it a hoax, even if you wanted to.
Well, thankfully, the film was preserved in its better qualities, and so we all benefit from that. And it's too late to really try. They don't need to try this again. I mean, they've tried it numerous times now through the years. That worked okay as long as you had those
Grainy versions to look
bad
at.
copies, but they don't work too well when you can see all the good stuff.
Yeah. And the movement underneath the skin of muscles and things like that are even today obscenely difficult to duplicate with special effects prosthetics. Sure, you can do CGI. You can do it with AI, but they didn't have anything like that. At the same time that this film was shot, Planet of the Apes came out, and that was like groundbreaking makeup effects technology, where they didn't have full-size masks. They had pieces of the masks glued onto their face, and then they had makeup in between to make it look like it was all one, so their faces could move a little bit. But that was it. From the chest down, they didn't have anything. They had them in clothing so that they wouldn't have to deal with all of that because it didn't look realistic.
When I first got into this, I was told that you couldn't magnify it, but yet I was able to magnify it. And I told them, I said, you need to rethink that. Whoever told you couldn't, you need to go find out why and see if that information is not in error, because it didn't suffer much to make an enlargement this big. That's just the face. There it is. I don't want to hear no mumbo jumbo about 1.8 millimeters tall on the film or anything like that, because somebody's just done told them a bunch of hooey and they bought it. There's your calf muscle. Watch it. I did this one years ago. People have taken it and modified it. Used the background frame as one I got from Miss Patterson. It was of really superior quality.
Well, it's whenever this finally does blow over, and they've either made their money or not, the Patterson film, its true value, it's going to be in its scientific merit.
I agree, and that's what got you interested in it, because you took a look at it and went, well, wait a minute, this looks real.
Exactly. Once you get past a certain point, you realize you know what you're looking at. Well, then you go on to other questions. What is the nature of it? What is this, a modern human, Homo sapien? certainly does not appear to be. But if it's a Homo something, it's got all our tools: arms, legs, walk upright, vocalizations. Uh, can if it wanted to construct things with tools. Uh, it's a Homo something, but
They do construct things. They make tree structures. Um, According to Carl Linnaeus, the guy that invented zoology, he actually had them classified, believe it or not, along with mythological creatures that have since been believed to not be real. But he had Bigfoot already classified, and he called them Homo ferus, feral humans. Homo ferus, Ferris. So, yeah, if you want to give them a zoological classification, default to Carl. He already classified them 400 years ago.
yeah, I'd say that was a accurate description. I mean, they're feral. They're not living in a city of
Nope.
their own construct. They're living in the bush.
Mm-hmm. They're doing the Uncle Ted Nugent thing, living in the woods. We should also bring up Bill Munn's analysis, even though he's a new guy and hasn't been at this as long as MK Davis, that he is a special effects guy. And he was in the new video and he saw the new supposed dry run, which is actually a recreation. And his analysis is that the new video has an average suit in it, not the one in the Patterson Gimlin film. Quote, it was obviously a suit and an average grade in terms of quality, not really high-end Hollywood level, nothing with muscles and mechanics in it like you would need to make the original Patterson Gimlin film.
Yeah, you got me thinking. I'm tracing my roots. How many years I've been at this? I wouldn't have gone this long had I seen any sign of a hoax. It's the fact that I don't see a sign of a hoax.
And it's not just you, it's all the experts on locomotion, kinesiology, body proportion and structure, foot morphology. They've all took a real close look at it, weighed in on it, and went, yeah, this ain't a guy in a suit.
Yeah, I and Bill Munns and I agree that it's not a man in a suit, and that I really appreciate people who are willing to come forward and take some of the heat, take some of the risk in making a statement, definitive statement, and I appreciate him doing that.
And we got another guy that's also working on an even better, cleaner, more beautiful, stabilized version of it, Todd Gatewood. That's going to be out shortly. And everybody can take a look at that when he gets done with it. Looks like it's going to be really good.
I think if anybody can, he will.
Right on. Well, Todd gave you a shout out and said, yeah, MK is great. And I was really happy I got a chance to work with him. So there you go.
Yeah, same here.
So again, the final analysis, most of this story kind of hinges on when that other reel was shot. And again, there is no actual evidence for when it was shot. They've got the mark on the film that the film stock was made by Kodak in 1966. Well, as you yourself pointed out when we were talking about this, MK, you could take a reel of film out of one of those canisters that was manufactured in 66 today and shoot something with it. Does that mean you filmed it in 66?
I wouldn't think it was filmed whenever it was filmed.
By their way of logic, it sounds like it.
Thing about it is, the original film stock was Kodachrome 2, which was the second best film stock in the industry. And from that point, all copies went to a different film stock. So you make a copy, it's going to have a different date on it.
Yep.
And different information. And then a copy of that might have entirely different also. So you see, it's hard to say definitively based on information there and along the sides of the film strip. It's that was just what was on that copy.
Mm. Well, again, this is the comparison reel that they're having the big argument about right now. And, was this a dry run for the Patterson Gimlin film, or was it post film? And again, all they've got on it is the maker's mark, manufactured in '66, which means really nothing.
Patterson was making this commercial movie. I mean, if you're going to make a commercial movie, to show in theaters, entertainment movie, then you're going to naturally have a suit of some kind to create your storyline. He had marquees already made up. I've got pictures of his marquees.
Yeah. Well, comparison video, that's because in those days, if you just had a movie where it was all people talking about Bigfoot stories, that's a talking heads movie, which is excruciatingly boring for the people that are watching it. So you have to have a suit of some kind in there to occasionally walk across the screen. And then you got a little thing down at the bottom that says recreation. And that keeps everybody's attention. So sit there and listen to the next story that's being boringly repeated by somebody who may have had an experience but are not really good at telling it.
Well, just don't be too fast to draw a conclusion, like a lot of people have been, especially with this latest episode, that this is a complex story, and the film itself is complex. And it's a very high quality film of a very rare, essentially a legend, and all of the biomechanics and stuff are there in the film. So it's not much way that people can allegate and hurt it. It looks bad on them. If you can show the film at the same time that they're talking, they'd be embarrassed.
Complete walk in reverse orientation. There's your back muscles moving. This is in reverse orientation. Shoulders. These are the glutes. These are 3 frames taken in the early part of the filming when everything was so shaky. But that part of the film actually contains a lot of science. People used to complain, well, that she must be having a pillow. Must be a pillow back there. All they had to do was look at the film. There's certainly no pillow there. There might be 2 pillows, one over here, but if you look, the hair is worn off. Well, it kind of shows that she's been spending a lot of time sitting. Still showed the division on the gluteus maximus. I think what they call your rear end, your buttocks. And she's got a maximus. Gorillas don't have that. Neck motion and face profile. Let's look at that one. It just shows you how much free movement of the neck. How many people have been wrong about that over the years? I know people who had copies of the film who said that she had no neck, she had to turn all of her shoulders. But that's not what that shows here. That's why you have to let the film talk. All right, so the neck moves. This has been deblurred. You can count the toes. Pretty good film.
Well, here's a little riddle for you. P.T. Barnum once said, "A blank in his blank soon will be parted." And yeah, I have I'm not really interested in seeing the latest money grift because I've been around since before the film was shot, and I've watched this kind of stuff happen over and over and over and over and over again. And it's been so definitively proven to be real at this point, it's even laughable that they're stupid enough to think that they can actually do anything other than make a quick grab of money and then have egg on their face. And I don't really care one way or the other. I'm not making money off it. This is like, I think, the third video ever out of 500 that I did on the Patterson Gimlin film. And one of them I had MK and Blaine Tyler on, pointing out that, guess what? There's more than just Patty in that film. There's other Bigfoot in there. So who are these guys? Extras and costumes that they had helping them set up the scene when they were filming it?
You see lots of things in a live event because camera person don't have control.
Mm-hmm.
If it's hoaxed, it's only what you engineer into it. So, you only get a limited number of things you're going to see there. That's not the case with the Patterson film. It's almost unlimited amount of things to see. And you could go looking for the better quality. If you get some of those frames, you'll see even more.
Good example of that, let's show it right now, is if you're going to make a monkey suit, you're probably not going to put a big bulge on its thigh, some sort of hematoma, to make it look like it was in an injury. I mean, keep in mind, they already spent millions of dollars on this suit. And now they're going to put even more money into it to make it look flawed and look like it was injured.
I want to talk a little bit about, when you're running the film and then all of a sudden you see a bulge on the leg. And it don't last but a couple of frames. And then she turns around and walks away and you don't see it anymore. Let's see if I can find it here. It's this frame right here. It pops up for only one frame. And I think Bill Munn said that it's not on his copy. So he wants to know what's it doing on mine. Like I made this copy or something. This came from John Green's copy. These images were taken with a microscope and a Canon SLR camera. And when the bulge happens, it's good enough quality that I was able to glean a lot of details. This is what makes me think the bulge is real. The fact that it has a shadow beneath it that's consistent with the rest of the shadows on the film subject. Well, I got her cropped right now, but it is consistent with the way that the sun and the angle of the sun casting this shadow. It also has a kind of a crease in it. What do you see there? It's right on the muscle they call one of the quad muscles. There's 4 muscles that hold the leg and move the leg. And this occurs on one of those muscles. And you can make it, you can continue to walk on 3. If you're ready for it and catch yourself, whether you pop this muscle and break it or whatever, you can still walk on 3. Now, what I want to do is, in an effort to try to solidify my thoughts on that, I go to the very best image from the film. This is the image that I got from Patricia Patterson, frame 352. Fantastically clear. So if there really was something going on with that leg, I should be able to pick it up here with this kind of clarity. You start to see it right in there. You see it's kind of a U shape. Now, I'm going to boost the contrast. You start to see a round pattern right here, circular. Oh my gosh. Circular with a hole in the middle. That's what it shows. Right there on that exact spot on the leg. One of those quad muscles. That's it right here. That's it. I can lighten it up a little bit. See it right there? Well, it's a cinch that there is problems there, and there is a round circular pattern, and there's a dot in the middle that appears to be a hole or puncture. See it a little, it's dimmer but better defined. Well, you have to just ask yourself, what am I looking at here? It definitely appears, it actually causes her knee to buckle inward for one step. The knee wobbles and buckles to the inside. She catches it, recovers, and continues to walk. Wow, that's a really attention to detail, isn't it?
Limitless budget these guys had. I don't know who was fronting the money for this, but it's just ridiculous. They managed to get technology that didn't even exist then.
They were so poor that they didn't even use lead bullets.
Oh yeah, I like that story too.
They
It's
just
true.
they bought these surplus, Vietnam War
Steel
era
jacketed.
steel jacket bullets for 2 cents a piece. You know,
You know why? Because he spent all the money on the film stock. That's why he had
right.
to cheap out on the camera rental too yet, because these guys had so much money.
So that really tells you a lot about their budget, don't it?
Oh God, yeah. They just had wads of money falling out of their pockets. God.
Well, I will say this: that it was those steel jacket bullets would pierce. They didn't explode, like the lead. They just poked a hole in and poked a hole coming out.
Yeah.
If you didn't hit bone or a vital area, they really, people, ouch. I had a friend of mine that got shot in the calf. His cousin shot him when a deer ran between them, and his cousin was on the other side of the field, and they shot him. And he said he felt something warm in his boot. Never felt a thing other than the warmth. He looked down there, and his boot was full of blood. He could walk. It just went made a little hole. It didn't explode.
Still sounds painful.
Oh well, I mean it was, but it didn't debilitate him. If he'd have hit bone, it would have probably exploded, blew his leg off.
Yeah, one more thing here, getting to the allegations of Mrs. Patterson being in on, some sort of a hoax or something. You met her. What was your take on her?
Very nice lady. She needed her husband. She never remarried. She didn't. She handled all that was to handle about that film, the business, and all the other. It was what Roger left her.
But there's no indication when you were interviewing her and taking pictures that she was in any way being duplicitous and helping execute a hoax.
No. She told us we'd be very surprised at what I have in this house having to do with Bigfoot. And I wish, for goodness sake, I had said, let's see it.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't thinking along those lines. I was there for a visit.
Damn it, MK. Quick, go back and visit her again.
Well, I really have lost touch with her ever since she her landline got turned into a fax line. I don't know her cell number.
Damn. You can call her a fax. Call in a fax.
Yeah, call in a fax maybe. She's the last time we spoke, she was having really bad problems with arthritis in her hands, and her back had just about gone out on her. She wasn't able to do much. She really loved to do beadwork. I wish I had purchased some beadwork from her. She loved the color purple. Everything was purple in her house. Just even down to the small things. All purple.
That's the royal color. Just ask Prince, he'll tell you.
Well, it was raining purple there.
Purple rain. So anyway, before we go here, what's your out of all the different things that you've caught on that video that prove that it's not a suit, what's your favorite one?
Well, I think it's everybody's favorite because it's not something that people would have, even if they could have included because of the trouble. It's the mammary glands, the breasts. They when you clear that film up by going to getting near the master, you see the details, anatomically correct details in that area that are absolutely incredible, and how they with the rhythm of her walk bounce up and down and then against one another and out
And independently.
independently. Yeah.
Mhm.
That is
And all the
deal.
connective tissue next to that tissue attaching underneath the armpits and stuff. You get to see that real clear. That's not a costume.
No, that's a deal maker. People know what they're looking at.
All right. That sharpens it enough. I don't know what I've done here. I've got several good angles on this. Okay, you can see the areolas on her breasts. Areolas and nipples. How did that happen? Well, and I've got 3 or 4 different frames that you can see them on. And then she turns around, never to turn back again. You can see this one kick up with the step that she took. In other words, it has about the density of water. If you were carrying a water balloon, you can see right there with the enhancements that they swing independent. They're heavy, and they have areolas on them. When I look at that, I just don't understand how anyone could dismiss that as a suit. That or any of the other hundreds of things. If it's a suit, it's extremely, extremely competently made suit with technology that they didn't even have back then. Let's just not even think that way, because there is no if here. Those are breasts.
So now, out of all the time that you've been dealing with this, which is like since last century, for God's sake. So freaking long ago. Yeah, they didn't even have internet back then. He had to see a Patterson Gimlin film on a book. But what do you think is the most hilarious attempt to attack the Patterson Gimlin film that you've seen so far?
Yeah, well, they had one guy that they had decided this was on a show that was produced by Fox called World's Greatest Hoaxes. And they had decided that the Patterson film was a hoax. And they had the guy who was in the suit. And this poor guy said, look, no, it's not me. I didn't do it. And they said, come on, you're that big. You got the size and everything and the stride and everything. He goes, I can't help it. It wasn't me.
At that point, there was like already about 4 people that had claimed to be in the suit, though, wasn't there? So he would have
Oh,
been
yeah. I'm sure it was very crowded in there. You know, they were all competing.
And at the end of the show here, I'm going to play a little song that M.K. Davis wrote a poem about, and somebody else put it to music and sang the lyrics. And that's one of the parts in there where there's already 4 people in the suit. And the 5th guy says, don't put me in there. I'm not in there. There's no room.
Said Jerry G. I wrote the lyrics to it quite a few years back, last century actually. No, it wasn't. It was right after the turn of the century.
Okay. Back in the grim, hardly remembered dark ages of the 20th century.
Oh yeah. It to me it all seemed kind of over the top. All these claims, you know. Go get a job.
Well, when they're trying to ambush some guy that wasn't even in the suit,
you were in the suit. Kind of a little bit of change out of it, you know. They go through all that trouble.
Hey, buddy, come into the studio off the street. Sit down here for a minute. You're a big guy. You were in the suit, right? You were the guy that wore the Patterson Gimlins.
He goes, no. They tried to hem him up and force him to confess, and that guy said no. It was not me.
Well, I guess the 5th spot in the suit now, LD Atlee's taking that one, so we're back to having 5 people in it again. Yeah,
and there was a 6th one that somebody knew about. They told me about it. I've forgotten the guy's name. But he was claiming, you know, he wasn't being told he did it. He was, you know, trying to get his 15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
where did you fit in there? Did you slide in one leg or what? I mean,
well, after the fact, when they went and got the track casts and then came back later and did some ground compression tests and stuff and figured out Patty had to weigh like about 700 pounds. Now that explains, if you got 5 guys in the suit, how she could weigh that much.
Yeah, I guess so.
That would explain the ground compression on the suit. You got that many people crammed into it.
There's been a lot of arguments about the weight. I know the weight is extraordinary because I've seen their tracks in situ, but there was a company called the North American Science Institute, and Peter Burns' organization paid them $75,000 to do an scientific analysis on the film. And this man named Jeff Glickman came up with a weight of 1,400 pounds.
Well, she wasn't that fat. I mean, she was a.
Well, it doesn't have anything to do with fat. It's got to do with muscle fiber.
Yep.
He used the biomechanics.
What I just showed you was a genuine frame from the film, frame 352, obtained from Mrs. Patterson, right off the film. I took that 4x5 transparency and took it to Photo House in Yakima, Washington, and they scanned this professionally for me. And this is what you see. a closed fist. This is the tips of the fingers right here. It's like that. See if I can see myself on here. Closed like that. Now what you're going to see in that other, this frame right here is a hoax. They drew in the fingers. And they also drew in, let's see if I can get to it. They took those two pieces of film debris off and kind of closed the mouth. Why did they do that? So they could have it copyrighted. That was the only frame from the film that was in the public domain. They couldn't get any money, so Rene DeHenden went and had alterations done to it so that it no longer represented the film. And then he had that copyrighted. Okay. So if you see frame 352 in some kind of venue, and it's got those drawn in fingers, right there, it's been altered. That's the best I can say about it. The original, her hands, her fist was closed. You can see that too. See the fingernails? Mouth open. Teeth showing. Is that a mask? Sure don't seem like it.
And you use mathematics to calculate the weight.
Well, as far as that goes, there's been a bunch of different guesstimates on the height too, which are all over the place from 6 feet to 7.5 feet, depending on who you're listening to and how much quality they put into their analysis. You know, and some of these people have been to the site and took all the measurements on some of the stuff that's still there, so you get a pretty good idea on how tall she was. And she was no 6 feet tall.
I use the feet that they have pointing back at the camera early on.
Measured the length of her foot and then stacked her footies up.
A known length, that foot, that footprint. And I'd be willing to go up to 7. I don't think I'd go any higher because I think you'd get you would not explain the foot, being as long as it was. But
frankly, I think she was probably about 7'2", 7'3", but she never straightens up completely. She's walking a little bit hunched over.
It's also broken ground.
She's right about 7 feet tall the way she's walking along there.
Broken ground makes it difficult to judge because you step in the hole, you go out.
Yep. It's not a nice level surface to look at. But again, we know just because of the way their body is built and the way they walk tilted forward, and she wasn't standing upright at any point. So if you can guesstimate her around 7 feet, standing upright, she would have been a little bit taller than that, maybe 7'2".
She's plenty big.
Well, yeah, bulky too. That wasn't a svelte girl.
But, she was pretty broad across the shoulders. And legs. The legs were enormous.
Massive. And there's another tell for the suit. You get to that one frame where she's turning to look back and she's not paying attention where she puts her foot. And she takes a step with her right leg. And you can see that impact tremor go all the way up her thigh to her hip. There's no damn way you can duplicate that with some saggy suit.
You'd have to fill that suit with some kind of gelatin,
Mm-hmm.
in order to kind of get that kind of a shake.
Yep.
No. That's why I say it's easier to believe that that's a real Bigfoot, than it is to try to explain it away with some of the ridiculous notions, which is what people do. They try to explain it away. They keep thinking they're going to put this thing away.
Because it's their paranoid.
Unsuccessful.
Because they live in a glass house and they're afraid some night Bigfoot's going to show up in the middle of the night and throw a rock at it. Well, I hope we all threw some rocks at your glass houses tonight. Thanks for the strafing run on the SS Grifter with your mighty A-10 Warthog fully loaded with depleted uranium and bullshit-seeking missiles, which you will have fired off. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember, a fool and his money soon is parted. Slander and hearsay are not evidence. And do not believe or hug the grifters. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
What was it that walked that way along Bluff Creek on an October day that stirred to life a legend of old? Can the story now be told? I knew that Indian, said old Ray. I taught him how to walk that way. Some folks think that it's my wife, but I tell you, it was me that gave it life. Others said it was Jerry G, who quickly said, it wasn't me. But Jerry, don't you walk that way. I'll tell you, man, there ain't no way. Some say they can see the scenes, bells and whistles and laser beams, zippers, breasts and vocal sacs, and with babies hanging off her back. I was in that suit, said Robert H. I did it all in just one take. Bob and Roger were both involved. Now I want my cut. The mystery is solved. Now wait a minute, said the other three. It couldn't be you, 'cause it was me. And there was a mass confession on TV. And the list grew longer of who it might be. And the media thought it all was cute, and they reported they all were in the suit. They fought each other for this scoop. They didn't bother with the truth. Along Bluff Creek, if you go down there and you listen when there's still air, you may hear a whistle or see a track. It's all the suit you think, but watch your back.
Kind to everyone. Safety first, last, and always. Pay it forward. Don't be mean to people if you don't have to be. Don't flip off the mountain giant. Don't poke Dogman with a stick. Don't punt the puck, would you? And for God's sake, whatever you do, do not hug the Wookiee.